Hey folks, welcome back to Motorcycle Tours. My name is Jesse.
I'm Miguel.
And after 13,000 kilometers and 6 months, we are now ready to give a review of the lowering kit from Hyperpro for the BMW F750 and 850GS. So if you remember our previous video with a comparison between the 750 and 850GSs, you may remember Miguel sitting on the 850GS and tippy-toeing around, but you really fell in love with that bike, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, you wanted that bike, even though it was a little too tall for you, or you were a little too short for it, whichever way you look at it. But we ordered one of those bikes and we had the option of either having it factory lowered or lowering it with an aftermarket kit. And the reason we went with an aftermarket lowering kit is because if you have it factory lowered, you can't have the dynamic ESA, the electronic suspension adjustment, or a central stand. It's just not an option. You have to pick either that or a factory lowering kit. But with an aftermarket lowering kit like the one we have from Hyperpro, we can have all of those nifty features, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the good things about the electronic suspension adjustment is when you switch riding modes, it adjusts not just the suspension, it's the traction controls, the throttle response, all of those kinds of things. Even the ABS gets adjusted, and the suspension, so it'll stiffen up or soften up depending on which riding program you're in. And we wanted that option, and as well as a central stand, though that didn't quite turn out as we expected. We ordered it through our dealer and they installed it for us. Since we didn't want to avoid the warranty on our brand new bike, we had an authorized dealer do the work for us. And the way progressive springs work, which are the ones that are offered by Hyperpro, is that each loop of the spring is going to get progressively further away or closer together, which depending which way you start out, right? And the most expanded section is the one that's going to be facing the ground. So that's going to absorb the unevenness in the ground, and the middle section, which is a little tighter, that's going to absorb bumps and so on. And the top part, which is completely compressed, that's the part that gives you actually the lowering of the bike, is going to control when you do hard brakes and so on. And according to Hyperpro, this can actually shorten your hard brake distance by about 15-20% thereabouts. Did you notice anything when you were doing hard brakes into hairpin curves and things like that, how the bike handled with these progressive springs?
Actually, I could not notice any difference from the original one.
Mm-hmm. What about the soaking up of unevenness in the ground and when you're doing really rough asphalt or off-roading?
No difference.
No difference?
No difference.
Well, if there is a difference, it's very difficult to feel, and I think you have to ride them really back to back to feel the difference.
And we didn't have a chance to do that.
No.
I had to compare it how it was, before we bought the bike and rented the 850.
Yeah, with quite a bit of time in between. But what we can say though is that when you sit on the bike, you're not going to notice that the springs are progressive unless you really know what you're looking for or compare it immediately with one that doesn't have it. But it does lower the bike 40 millimeters from the original 860 millimeters on the F850GS, bringing it down to 820 millimeters in seat height. And you also have the low saddle as well, the medieval torture device, which I absolutely hate. It's atrocious, people. It's I don't know what BMW were thinking when they made that low saddle. I mean, it's awful. I mean, don't they? I mean, test their products. I mean, it's fine if you're going for a short little distance, but we went through 19 countries for over a month on that bike. And tell me, how did your ass feel after the first week?
The first week was really bad.
Yeah.
I had to stop all the time. But then after a week, I got used to it.
Yeah.
Or I start liking the pain. I don't know. But last week, I didn't feel that much.
Yeah.
I have to admit.
You went completely numb.
Yeah, I was numb.
Yeah, it's bad. Luckily, there are aftermarket low saddles available. Sargent has one. We're hoping to do a review on that very soon. Wunderlich, I think, already has one or is about to release theirs. And there may be other companies as well, so that's an option to look into. So if you're looking to buy this bike or you already own it and a low saddle is on the table for you, do your ass a favor and look for an aftermarket low saddle one, because the one from BMW is not very good. But with a lowering kit and a low saddle, you get all the way down to 800 millimeters in C-height, and that's actually lower than the 750GS, which has 815 millimeters original in C-height. It's actually lower than the Honda CB500X.
It is 10 millimeters lower.
Yeah. And it gives you quite a lot of confidence when you're driving at slow speeds, driving off-road, or when you're parking, or you need to backpedal out of a parking pocket or something. Yeah.
The only thing is that you get a little less ground clearance.
Yeah.
But I haven't noticed any. I mean, to notice that difference, the 4, how much is it? Like
4
this?
centimeters.
Well, something like this.
I don't know, 4 centimeters is something.
So
it's not a lot.
This disadvantage can only be noticed probably if you do some really hardcore off-road.
Yeah.
But if you're just going on gravel roads or light off-road, single tracks, they are not too difficult.
Yeah.
Those 4 centimeters won't make any difference.
No.
At least not for me.
No, and I think that a lot of people who buy the 850GS, they're not going to be the kind of people who do that kind of hardcore off-roading through the forest. I'm not talking about gravel, sand roads, or bead roads, or whatever you want to call them, off tarmac. I'm talking going straight through a potato field, right, with boulders. I mean, not a whole lot of people are going to do that with their 850GS. The people who gravitate towards those kinds of off-road riding, I caught it there, see, I caught it there, riding. They tend to pick dirt bikes, right?
Right.
Not an 850GS, it's an adventure bike, right? It's not a pure off-road bike. So for the most part, the ground clearance is going to be good enough, even though you shave 4 centimeters off.
And the interesting thing is that even with the lower kit, it is higher than 750.
Yeah, the ground clearance is greater on the lowered 850 than on the 750GS stock. Obviously, one thing to think about when you have the bike lowered with an aftermarket kit is that the side stand's not going to fit anymore. It's going to be too tall, right? You can say that the 850 and 750GS, they do stand quite upright when you put it on a side stand. Kind of almost scary, like you want to just make sure it's not going to fall over. And with lower suspension, obviously, it's going to be even worse. So what we did is we got the OEM, the side stand from the factory lowered one, and replaced the stock one with that. How do you feel that's worked?
It's still too tall.
Yeah?
It's still too tall. The bike is standing almost straight, which is not so good. So I will cut it a piece like this.
Yeah. But, I mean, you can get away with it.
You can get away.
The side stand from the factory lowered one. I mean, it works, but it does stand a little too tall. Maybe a little taller or straighter than it does originally. So cutting off maybe a little bit of that might help. And any competent welder can do that for you. It's quite a cheap and simple operation to just cut a centimeter or 2 off the middle of it. And the central stand. Let's talk a little bit about the central stand.
That's another story.
Yeah.
Because the original center stand that comes with the bike, when you lower the bike, it's going to be too tall. And me personally, I could not put the bike on the central stand. You could. I did not
have much problems with putting the bike on the central stand, no. Then again, I am a little bit more spherically inclined than you are, so my body weight on top of the central stand and up it went, whereas you were there hopping and tugging and really groaning and doing your best and not succeeding. But again, Your local welder is going to be able to shave off a few centimeters off the middle of it, like they cut it often like pretty close to the bottom, but not all the way. And then, you know, they take out a centimeter or 2 or 3, you should probably take out 4 or 5 centimeters. 4 centimeters would be very good, because that's exactly how much you lower the bike with. And then weld the feet back on.
I tried to put a center stand from a 750. And that one was too low.
It was too low?
Yes. So it didn't make any sense to have it.
All right, folks. Well, that's a good point. The central stand from the 750GS will not work. So that's also something to know. But I think a lot of people who watch this video are going to wonder, will it change the character of the bike? The first thing we should say is that you should never change or modify the ergonomics of the bike in terms of lowering only the front or only the rear, because what happens is you're going to make the bike tilt a little bit, right? When you change the height on only one side, and that can affect your braking distance when the weight distribution gets wrong, and that could actually be dangerous. So don't do that unless you really know what you're doing and you're going for something specific. We have the lowering kit for both the front and the rear, so the ergonomics of the bike and the dynamics stay the same. And I think a lot of people are going to wonder, how does it feel? I mean, what am I sacrificing, right? But because they're progressive springs, you might actually see them as a kind of upgrade, because progressive springs are going to give you better handling and better everything in every regard for the most part, driving generically. But you are shaving off a little bit of the suspension travel. But how do you, I mean, the cornering and so on still feels as it should.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
We did a lot of twisties. I mean, days after days in the twisties, and I didn't notice any difference or like braking hard before a curve. No problem.
No problem.
No problem.
I know a lot of people have been asking me before, both on in the comment sections and in direct messages, if the 850 or 750 is going to be too tall for them. And I think that the lower-end kit, either the factory-lowered one or an aftermarket one, is quite a viable option. I don't feel it gimps the bike or compromises to the extent that you're ruining the experience. You might argue that the large ground clearance, the large suspension travel of the 850GS is kind of the whole point of the bike. But it's still a very competent, a very good bike, lowered. So I would definitely say that if you're looking to maybe buy one of these bikes, or you already have one and you feel it's too tall for you, have it lowered, because you really can't beat the feeling of confidence of being able to reach the ground.
One point also is that it's quite cheap upgrade.
Yeah, it was like around 300, 350 euros thereabouts.
Something like that. So it's not a very costly modification.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that concludes our review of the Hyperpro lowering kit for the BMW 750 and 850GS. I hope you liked this video. And if you did, hit the like button. If you didn't, please tell us why. Subscribe to our channel for more awesome videos about bikes, gear, and all kinds of general shenanigans. And see you soon.